Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen Podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, while I got you here, make sure you're checking out, or I would highly encourage you to check out the entire suite of Eastman's YouTube content. That includes Eastman's Hunting TV on YouTube. Beyond the Grid is on YouTube. You can also find all of the Wingmen content, obviously, on YouTube, and all of our podcasts. Holy smokes, we have a massive suite of podcasts out there. So we have Eastman's Journal Podcast, which is hosted by Ike Eastman. We have Eastman's Elevated, hosted by Brian Barney. We have Eastman's Life of a Bow Hunter, co-hosted by Brian Barney and Dan Picard. That's a tag team one. They talk about all things bow hunting. We have my favorite podcast, the Wingmen Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Todd Helms. We have Eastman's Predator Pros, and we have the Western Huntsman Podcast, hosted by Jim Huntsman. You can find all those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find all of our gear reviews across all of our properties that we do on YouTube. Those are Wingmen gear reviews, Eastman's Hunting TV gear reviews, and I'm trying to remember what I left out, guys. But my point is, there is a plethora of information and content out there on YouTube for you to check out and enjoy.
Hey guys, huge shout out to our newest Wingman partner, Roughland Kennels out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You can see my kit right here, my setup. I've got the Roughland Intermediate Kennels with the front open doors. I have a handful of bowls and these handy dandy scoops. And I have kennel covers because it gets cold out here and I like my dogs to be warm in transport. Guys, I would encourage you to go to roughlandkennels.com and check out the full lineup of everything they have. They have a ton of different colors of kennels. They have an amazing array of accessories, so you got everything you need when you head out in the field, when you're training on a hunt, whatever it may be, Roughland's got you covered. Check out roughland.com and you can build a kit just like I did.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingmen Podcast. This is specifically School of Strut 2.0, episode 4. And my illustrious guest on today is Dan Compton of Federal Premium, back for his second episode of the Wingmen Podcast. Dan, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Good afternoon.
Yeah. How's things back in the beautiful land of Minnesota?
Things are good, man. We're starting to thaw out for the year here. So it's we got a little bit of cold snap. We were supposed to get 16 inches of snow on Sunday, but we got more, about 8 or 9. Some places got a little more, and now it's starting to warm up. So I've got my last ice fishing outing of the year is going to be this weekend with a couple guys from the office here, and then after that, it's turkey time. So
yeah, buddy. Yeah, turkey time. Yeah, at least you have ice. I was actually fishing open water walleyes last night.
Oh yeah.
We haven't had a winter at all. I mean, it's just very little snow. We got a blizzard on Saturday, cold temps, and by Sunday afternoon it was crazy. Everything was gone. It's like 80 degrees outside right now.
No,
so it feels like spring. I mean, grass is turning green and turkeys are gobbling and strutting, and yeah, it's go time. So even though we still have like a month before we can hunt.
Sure. Yeah, they're starting to flock up all over around here. You know, you can tell like they were, and then the snow came, and I'm like, oh, what do they do when all that snow comes? But as soon as you start to see like a little crack in the fields, they're coming out. So, I mean, we get tough winters. So I mean, it's tough on the birds, and you know, Minnesota's a pretty good success story where, you know, in the late 90s there was hardly any turkeys. They were all down in southern corner, and they've just gradually made their way across the state, and then. You know, some of my coworkers, like, you know, Brian Kelvington, who you know, he's the one fishing with this weekend. He's got a cabin in northern Minnesota, and he's got them all around his. So that's about, you know, it's about as extreme as it can get. And I know they're doing well in Canada too. So.
Yeah, Michigan was the same way. I actually, on episode 3 of School of Strut 2.0, I talked with Renee Flatland from Buckmasters, and she's over in Wisconsin, and we were talking about that very thing about, you know, when I was a kid, you had to go downstate in southern Michigan to find turkeys, and even then there weren't very many, and now they're everywhere. And I think that's kind of the story across the board in a lot of places, you know. And it's crazy because in turkey hotspots like hope I'm not getting any feedback there. in turkey
I'm sorry.
hotspot.
I think you're hearing my coworkers out in the hallway.
Oh no, I just have my volume turned up.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, in traditional turkey hotspots like Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, some of those places, even down south, their turkey numbers are hurting. They keep losing birds, and the Midwest just keeps coming on strong. And a lot of Western states are in the same ballpark. We haven't had, the whole state of Wyoming and most of Montana didn't get hardly any winter this year.
Okay.
Where the upper Midwest in particular got pounded. I mean, you guys got an old fashioned winter this year.
Yeah, we did. It reminded us what cold was again.
I'm talking to buddies in the UP, and they're digging out from 40 some inches of snow in the last 3 days, and it's full on still winter up there. So places like that, those extreme northern edges of turkey habitat, I think you'll always see birds fluctuate just based on weather. But, we're looking at it out here where, other than managing habitat and nest predators, there's no reason we don't have lots of birds this year.
Sure.
Should be really good, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and something about like Minnesota too. Somebody told me it's like, and once they said it, I noticed it. A lot of dairy farms, right? Yeah. And those turkeys, they really gravitate. But I think that really helps them get through the winter. Those feedlots and things like that.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's the same here. I was up. Brandon Mason and I are headed up to northern Montana to hunt this year, and I was actually at the place we're going to be hunting, shooting geese this winter, and good grief, there had to be 500 to 1,000 turkeys, on their feed grounds, on their cattle feed grounds. It was crazy. So they'll all disperse by the time we get there, of course, and we'll be hunting, lesser numbers of birds. But yeah, they're incredibly, incredibly adaptable and hardy bird. You look at them and you're like, dude, you don't have down. You got your big bare legs. I mean, a naked head, how do you survive? And you get a lot of winter and it's hard on them, but man, they come back pretty good if they have habitat and feed. What do you got on the docket, man, this spring coming up?
For this spring, I just had something pop up where I'm going to hunt down in Alabama I think it's opener there. It's going to be on the 30th. So nice. I'm pretty excited for that. I've hunted in Texas, but that'll be the southernest that I've hunted turkey before. So I'm looking forward to that. And then last year I got a bird in Idaho, and I hunted Minnesota and South Dakota, and I was able to tag out everywhere, which was pretty cool. So this year I might do the same. We'll see if I can work Idaho or not. But anyway, I just picked up a tag for Wisconsin today, so I kind of got my little local region here. So I got South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and I could try to get, there's part of me would love to just get 6 more if I could get them, but there is ultimately they only have so many hours in the day to get after it, and so it'll probably be a pretty manageable season for me, but I'm pretty excited. Over the years, I always hunted birds, and I can't remember if we talked about this last year, but I feel like in the past couple, I've become a turkey hunter.
Right.
I'm at the point now where I'm willing to take people out and mentor them, because I feel like I've learned enough, and I'm just not going to totally get my butt kicked, even though we can all get our butt kicked day in and day out, no matter what. So
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still turkey hunting for sure.
Yeah.
And we've got some hunts on the books this year that are looking like, by all accounts, they should be slam dunks, right? But they never are. Some years you do really well, and some years you get your butt kicked for sure. But you make sure that everything is, your gear's squared away and you can be as dialed as you possibly can. But oh man, that brings me to a point that is raging over the interwebs. What is the deal with TSS right now? I would assume that you guys, being a massive ammunition producer, are probably sitting pretty, but man, there's a lot of little boutique producers that are like, we're not getting any more TSS. This is it.
Sure.
I know that global demand has increased, prices increased, but can you walk us through that and what that may look like in the coming months and even over the course of the next year?
Yeah. We, like as said, we bought long on TSS over a year ago, and even a little bit before that. So we had plenty to get us through, this season and a little bit beyond. But mainly, a majority of the tungsten produced shot is produced in China. China's really clamped down on certain metals. Bismuth is another one. They added bismuth, if I got my facts right, they added bismuth and antimony to the rare earth metals export list there, which put them in a different category in terms of what the producers there can export. And I believe they pay like a certain excise tax internally. So the Chinese government is putting, passing that cost along to the consumers. And then basically right now, they're just not allowing any to be shipped out of the country, So anywhere else that it's being made, all that's done is just drive up world demand for anybody else who has any little bit of bismuth, antimony, tungsten in their country or ever able to produce it. And so we're trying to turn to more domestic production, but they're all pretty much sold out, or, the lead times are getting to be 6 months. The price used to live around, it'd be in the mid 30s to $40 a pound. And some of the latest quotes, you'll hear people talking about $175, $200 a pound. Somebody quoted us 300 the other day. So
wow,
it's a real, it's a fact. It's not just a scare tactic. It's what's happening. And, I saw, I think it was Saltgrass Ammo Company put out like, TSS is dead, and they had taps playing behind it, on Instagram. I thought that was pretty stellar. So, and I'm not that I'm celebrating it, but it's, to kind of look at it, it's the reality that we're in. So,
right.
So we're just kind of scouring the earth to try to find what we can and see, at a decent price. And then for us, it's like, what's the next direction? I know that like Winchester, they found a 17 density and they're shipping that. We're trying to look at other alternatives. As a company, we can produce tungsten up to 12 grams per cc. We can do that at the heavy shot facility. And so I think some of the, you're going to see some of the, there'll always be somebody who's willing to pay whatever it costs for TSS, but there becomes a point where, $30 a shot's not going to be viable, or we'll start selling singles maybe, I don't know. But I think you're going to see a push, kind of a recentering back to, like that 12 density tungsten that heavy shot did. Like that was the standard, for a long time, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see, companies that are able to do that, because that's going to get the price down, but still raw tungsten still costs more. So it's going up. But like, a return to copper plated lead, it's what people did for a long time. It's what works. TSS has truly changed the game. I think it's opened up, it's gave you a ton of insurance, if that bird hangs up a little further, or if he's closer. And if, before you're getting 10 hits in the neck and head, and now you're getting 30, that bird's going down. Right. So yeah, it's, times like this is what forces innovation, so we'll start looking at wad designs. We'll start trying to find, can we get away with less density? Can we lock up a good supply? And I can assure you, it's probably taken up half my time the past few months, looking at alternatives and working with different suppliers and, working with our supply guys who go out and, are sourcing this stuff out in the market. So.
Yeah, if that doesn't shed light on it, I don't know what does. At the end of the day, consumers are going to look at it and have to decide, I can either afford this or I have to find a different alternative. And I think that what you just brought up about before TSS, I feel like I've been fond of saying this for a long time, that, when the non-toxic shot ban went into effect in 89?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Something like that. For a lot of years, I think a lot of manufacturers just kind of struggled a little bit trying to figure out, pivot, where do we go? What do we do? Obviously, steel was the answer for waterfowl. And, early steel was, it was tough to swallow because guys are coming straight off of shooting lead. But what I've said this for a long time, I think that non-toxic shot ban was the best thing that ever happened in the world of shotgunning as far as product development goes. Because before that, there was no reason to innovate, really.
Yeah, sure.
Your lead shells, always worked. You know, they worked for turkeys, they worked for ducks, geese. I mean, across the board, you just pick up one load. You could literally probably buy a 2 3/4 inch number 5 lead load and shoot everything from pheasants, ducks, geese to turkeys with it. And you're set across the board. Well, when all that changed, companies like Federal were like, what can we do different? What can we do better? And pretty soon you've got bismuth. And then after that, you've got heavy shot. And I remember going from lead, regular 3-inch number 6 lead turkey loads to the first time I shot the heavy shot loads. I was blown away. My patterns are denser. I'm able to, like you said, it's an insurance policy. I'm able to take birds cleanly at longer distances when that is necessary. I mean, the ideal is obviously you shoot a bird at 10 yards right in the beak, you know, that's what everybody wants. But the realities of hunting is you might have to take a 40-yard shot, you know, and TSS made that like a no-brainer. I mean, if it's inside of 60, that's a dead bird. And holy smokes. So I think you got guys that are kind of be scrambling a little bit. What are some of the offerings that Federal loads that guys could turn to if they find themselves, they can't find TSS, or the price has gone up to the point where they're like, I can't pay that. You know, What are some of the alternatives?
Yeah, we've got full lineup of TSS 12 gauge through 410. And like, just to kind of piggyback off what you said, like the challenge is you can find a substitute for 12 and 20 gauge that's going to do the job pretty well, right? And we'll get into those in a sec. But really, it's like if you've adopted the 28 gauge or the 410, like, you know, to me, like now that platform is not relevant. You know, there's not a good lead option to shoot turkeys with 410 unless you're at 10 yards, you know, or, you know, in 28 gauge, we can probably come up with something, but you're really at the bottom of, you know, not necessarily velocity and energy, because you'll have that, but it's really your payload has just gotten so small. And then lead, your pellet count is going to really get down there. So, you know, maybe something in the 28 gauge 6s would kind of be the, you know, the minimum, but if you got an ounce and an 8, if you got a 1 ounce of 6s, that's not a ton of pellets, you know, compared to a 12 gauge or, you know, so on. So for the lineup, if you're looking for alternatives, we're going to have what's called Third Degree, which is it's got lead and TSS in it. Third Degree's been out. I think we came out with the first edition of that probably 2012-ish, 2013. And initially, like, our thought on a turkey load was, you know, if you could make something spread and then cylinder off, you know, like it doesn't spread anymore, right? And part of it was, you know, we're always choking words tight, but, you know, that 15-yard bird, if you're choked so tight trying to shoot something at 50, you know, you got to be right on them, and all they got to do is just move their head and it's over. Like, you'll miss. So we're like, can we make something that's going to open up a little bit more closer, but still give you a 40-yard pattern? And that's where, so we put our flight stopper lead that we have in Prairie Storm, that sits on the top. It's got a Saturn ring around it, and because it's out around, that's what's going to scatter quickest up at the front. So that's size number 6s. In the middle, we have copper plated 5s, which is the gold standard of turkey hunting forever. And then we have number 7 TSS on the back, which is going to give you the long range effectivity. If you're pellet counting, you know, if you're a pellet counter and you've been shooting 9s TSS, the two aren't in the same ballpark at all.
Right.
But if you've been a lead shooter, you know, it's going to kill turkeys. Like, you know, we talked to people like, we didn't make a load to necessarily win a pellet count. We made a load to kill turkeys. And you're going to find it to be very effective. So we've got that in 20 gauge, 12 gauge, 3-inch, and 3.5.
Well, I've had some real world experience with the Third Degree when I took my wife to Iowa in 2019. And at that time, Iowa was no shot smaller than 7s.
Okay.
And I got some Third Degree in a 3-inch 12, and we killed a couple birds just stone dead. One at pretty far out there, he hung up, wasn't going to happen. And I think it was my brother shot that bird, and he looked at me and he's like, dude, what load is this? He's like, that was a prayer of a shot. And I stoned that bird. And so then I was explaining what you just walked us through. And then my wife killed a bird. Not a terribly, I think he was 30 yards, you know, but same deal. He hung up And he's like, I'm not seeing what I like here. And he turned to go away, and she stoned him. And I've killed a couple birds in Wyoming with it. And honestly, if that was the only load I could get my hands on, I would be over the moon ecstatic with that. It's a very high performance turkey load for sure.
Yeah, it's it was kind of fun to design, and it was a little counterintuitive, but we were trying to accomplish something different. And one of a writer we worked with, when we showed it to him, he's like, "But you guys really made something that kind of speaks to the spirit of turkey hunting, right? Call them in close and see if you can get them, and trying to optimize the close hunt, but not giving up anything at the traditional 40-yard range." So,
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's got our flight control system in it, which is kind of the cornerstone of our lineup. A lot of our premium lineup, you'll find that in Black Cloud, Prairie Storm. It originally was in turkey. It's a little different, and it can be counterintuitive in terms of how to choke it. So traditionally you got lead, or whatever your load is, tungsten lead, and you think that the more you constrict it, the better it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not always the case, even with a conventional wad, because you can over pressurize something, and then when it comes out, it just wants to scatter, right?
Yeah.
So it does take a little bit of trial and error to figure these things out. When we developed our flight control wad for turkey, like, we did use some aftermarket chokes on the market. I can't remember the constrictions right off, but the constriction from gun to gun is going to potentially do different things. So, but some of our early results, or you may find that you can shoot you might shoot third degree, or a 3-inch load on a really tight, constricted, extra full turkey choke, and see an okay pattern. But if you open that up to like a improved modified or a regular full, you might actually see a better result, because you're not compressing it too much. So it can help be a little try and error. That gets a little expensive, but I'm a broken record about shooting a piece of cardboard with your load and knowing exactly where it's at and what you're going to do. And if you can trial and error, you can start with your factory tube sets, and that'll give you an idea. And then if you want something aftermarket, try to find something aftermarket that's going to match those constrictions.
Yeah. Back to the experience I had, I think I was choking those with a 6.65 constriction, and my patterns were perfect, but I did go down to a 6.55 and blew it out. It was exactly what you just described. The pattern was still dense, but it was big. It was all over the place, and I wasn't happy with that. So I stuck with the 6.65, and for grins, I tried like you said, I tried just the regular factory full choke. And I mean, it was all you would have needed for sure, and I've gotten to the point too where if I'm hunting with kids or more inexperienced folks, I know those shots, I'm going to keep those shots in a controlled setting, or we're not going to take a 40-yard shot on a bird. It's going to be in the decoys, 15 yards. I've gotten to the point, especially with the TSS loads, where I'll back it down to a modified or even an improved cylinder, and it's a 15-yard shot. It's going to take that bird's head off still, and it's way more margin for error for an inexperienced shooter.
Yeah,
especially if you're shooting something without a red dot on it, where the red dot makes it way easier. But man, I do think we get carried away with too much constriction sometimes, and you just spoke to that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you'll find, like, as a rule of thumb, typically, like on TSS for sure, lead's a little different because it flows, right? Lead squishes, and it'll mold itself. Tungsten is just hard, just like steel. So what we found is, as you get bigger on the TSS size, like the difference between choking a 9s and a 7s, a 9s you can get away with that 6.55, but the 7s you have to, if that's going to be too much, and you'll blow the pattern out, because I think there's just less contact points, and it's not settling in against itself like the smaller shot size would do, and it's just not going to flow out that barrel as well. So.
Wow. Yeah, those are all great things to think about, because I think a lot of guys just go and grab a turkey choke and screw to the end of the gun, and they go hunt, and they may not be getting, and sometimes that works, but I'm with you. I'm a big proponent of, I want to know exactly what my gun's doing when I go out there. And the last couple of seasons, the shots that I've taken have been very close, very controlled, decoy setups with a blind. But I can think about going back even a couple of years where I didn't know what I was going to get, and I had limited time to hunt, and it was like, I need to make the most of this. So I need to be able to cover all my bases from 10 yards out to 60 if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And man, the old 6.65 constriction for me with the 3-inch 9s, heavyweight TSS loads have just been money.
Gotcha.
Just money. But I definitely wouldn't sneeze if I could only get my hands on 3rd degree either.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it's going to do the job.
Yeah. And then we got our copper plated line is called Grand Slam, and that you're going to find anything from 10 gauge down to 20. And that's been, kind of the core of our lineup for a while. It was called Mag Shock for a while, then we rebranded. And
right.
At one point when we developed or we optimized the flight control wad to work out of a ported choke tube, which a lot of aftermarket turkey chokes are. And when the wad first came out, that didn't work well through a ported system. So we made it so that it does. So I still get a lot of questions. So I can't shoot that because I got a ported tube, and that hasn't been the case since 2027. So we're almost 10 years in. But Grand Slam, you're going to find copper plated lead, 4s, 5s, and 6s in most loads. We got 10 gauge, 12 gauge, 3-inch, 3.5, 20 gauge, 3-inch, and then we got 12 gauge, 2 3/4 as well. And that's going to be, like I said, your bread and butter. It's going to be your best value. It's going to come in a 10-round box. It's going to cost probably $20, and there it's a little more affordable to kind of experiment and really find that, that choke tube that's really going to work well with that one load. And sometimes, and I understand them, and like if I bought a really expensive choke tube, I'm going to find the ammo that works with it, right? I'm an ammo guy, so I'm going to try to find a choke tube that works well with the ammo. Both can be expensive pursuits, I guess, but you will find a sweet spot for you, with something. And yeah, just find that load that's going to give you a really consistent spread, and your rule of thumb is turkey. How many hits can I get in a 10-inch circle is what we're looking for. Really, how many in the head and neck, is what we're getting for. And I would look for consistency, shot to shot versus tight. I would take a little bit more open, and there's nothing wrong. Just like with 3rd degree, having a little bit of forgiveness, because if that turkey just moves a little bit, it might be, you might be sunk at 20 yards and in. So.
This episode's brought to you by Federal Premium Ammunition. I've been shooting Federal for a lot of years, guys, and I can't say enough good things about them. Everything from the TSS Black Cloud loads to the Blue Box Steel, and now the heavy bismuth loads that they have, and of course the traditional tried and true Black Cloud FS steel. They got a load for everything. Last year I had a chance to put some of the new stuff through the paces, and I cannot speak highly enough about it. It swats birds out of the sky, gives me awesome patterns, and with the new heavy bismuth, I can use some of my old shotguns in the field as well and not have to sacrifice performance. So guys, when you reach for shells this year, reach for Federal Premium.
That's a great point. Back in the old days, before all this fancy stuff, and we were all shooting lead, I built a custom turkey gun. It was just an Remington 870 3-inch 12 gauge, but I bought a smoothbore 20-inch slug barrel that I could put different chokes in. I put an early edition red dot scope on it. I think I lengthened the forcing cone, and I bought 5 or 6 different choke tubes. Kind of like I went down this rabbit trail because I'm like, I want this tightest gun I can have that's consistent, that, I want to be able to shoot 50 yards if I need to. And back in those days, man, a 40-yard shot on a turkey was like, yeah, you might want to just wait and see what he does. It's ideally get him closer than that, but oh man, I went down. It was a 2-year-long process, and I shot every lead load under the sun because that's all there was back then. And I mean, you name the brand, I shot it out of that gun, and I ended up settling on the Federal Premium Grand Slam 4s, 3-inch 4s, and it wasn't that it was the tightest pattern across distance from 20 to 40. I think I patterned it out to 50, actually, 20 to 50. It wasn't the tightest, because, 4 is your shot count goes down, but it was by far the most consistent load, even of the other Grand Slam loads. My gun really liked that one, where I was consistently getting all the hits I needed in that 10-inch circle, that head and neck area, if you will, all the way out to 50 yards. And so that was the load that I think I bought 10 boxes of it, and I've still got some, but it's like, I haven't even used that shotgun in years, but holy smokes, that I stack up a mountain of turkeys with that thing. And I was supremely confident with that setup out to 50, and most of the birds, you probably killed most of the birds at 20, but it was like, man, I fiddled and that Grand Slam load was the one that it liked the best. And so having those options, because I'm already getting guys asking, hey, I can't find TSS. I can't find TSS for, for this or for that. What are some other options out there? And being able to say, hey, have you looked at third degree, or have you looked at just good old fashioned Grand Slam, man? I think in a pinch, and you can agree to disagree with me on this one, but I think in a pinch, your Prairie Storm pheasant load, your, blue box upland load inside a 30, probably going to do the job if you can't find, a dedicated turkey load.
Yeah, I've had guy, I hunted with a guy a couple years ago, and he said, I killed a bird with Black Cloud 3s last year, ammo is ammo, right? And you're shooting, any time with turkeys, you want to up your pellet count, right? Because you're just, because you are shooting at a small target. But if you have to trade down to the technology or the material that's going to give you less, we just got to be a little more patient, I think, is what it comes down to. Or there's got to be some level of acceptance, like if it hangs up at 60, today's not the day, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? I got to get better somehow, some way, so that I can work within the system that I'm running, and not just try to push the limits of that system and do something that's, like nobody wants to wound a bird, right? We want to put them down, we want to put them down hard, and we want to take them home. So that's, you pick your technology, right? But they're all going to have that window, and just, and I can sit in a deer stand, like Minnesota, a lot of stand hunting. I can sit there all day long, down to dusk. I'm built for it, whatever. I call a turkey and I don't hear a response in like 4 minutes. I'm like, I gotta go, and I just want to run and gun. I don't know what it is, but part of that, so for me, it's like, I gotta learn to be patient. Like if he hangs up, just wait. Like, there's tons of old timers out there going to tell you, like, that turkey knows exactly where you are. He doesn't wear a pocket watch. He's got no job other than to do is stay alive. So you just got to be patient, and he'll come to you eventually, so yeah. So I think that's the lesson, to anybody listening now. Like, I don't necessarily have the ammo I want, don't have the system, with what I normally do. We just got to be a little better hunters. And people killed turkeys for a long time with a lot less technology than we have today. So it's very possible, and and I'm not trying to paint it like it's dire. Like we're hoping that this is more of a temporary blip than a long-term blip. You never know what's going to happen with geopolitical politics, and there's sources that are trying to get up and running domestically, but at the same time, if they're making ore, they're going to probably sell it at world market price. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's cheaper, but hopefully this corrects itself and we're kind of back to what we have. But you don't have to quit turkey hunting if you can't find the shell you want, because there's a lot of good shells out there to try to find, I think, as you're illustrating with Prairie Storm or other products. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to shoot holes in your marketing by any means. It just, to your point, I literally spoke on the last episode with Renee, and the whole topic of patience came up, and I think honestly, one of the things we discussed, I think honestly that patience kills more turkeys than anything else. We all want to run and gun. We all want to get out there and get after it. We all have these ideas about what turkey hunting should look like. And at the end of the day, turkey doesn't know that. He's going to do turkey things, and adjusting your mentality, adjusting your mindset and your hunting tactics. Slow down, listen more than you look, or look and listen more than you talk, or call for that matter. And just enjoy that process, because holy smokes, I don't know how many times exactly what you just said. I'll be working a bird and he'll get quiet, and 15 minutes he's not there, and I'm like, well, okay, let's go, let's move. And you get up and you're halfway through packing up and you look up and he's standing there 30 yards away looking at you, and he hasn't talked to you in 30 minutes or maybe an hour. And he knew exactly where you were the whole time. He's going to come check that out eventually. Whether or not you're there is something that you have total control over. But we do, man. We get in such a yank that it's like, Renee and I were just discussing that exact thing. And yeah, you know, so much of it is you just enjoy that process. You know, my wife has become, I think turkey hunting is like her favorite thing in the world to do. And honestly, here, because of habitat limitations, it's a blind game. You know, we put up a blind and we're sitting on a food source in a travel corridor and waiting for those birds to do their thing, because the habitat's very skinny and you can push birds out of that habitat very easily if you're in there running around. And so you sneak in, sit still, call a little bit or don't, and just chill. And honestly, she's got to the point where, you know, she'll go out in the morning and sit. I'll take the kids to school and come to work, and she'll call me, you know, 10 o'clock. Now I'm headed back in and get lunch ready or do whatever, you know. I said, okay, how was the morning? Did you see anything? She's like, no, it was just really nice to sit in peace and quiet and watch the world wake up.
Yeah, sure.
And honestly, she'll go days without anything, and then all of a sudden there's a bird, and because she's done it every morning, she's there and she's ready and she's waiting, and she kills him, you know. And it's like, yeah, I think we could all take a lesson from that and be like, just enjoy that process.
Yeah, enjoy the pursuit, right?
Yeah, it's all, man, it's for whatever reason, you know, the speed of our lives today or whatever it might be, it's hard to remember that, though. You know, when you're in the moment, you want to make something happen, and sometimes you can't make it happen. It's got to just happen.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a time to attack and be an offense, and sometimes it's more of a defensive, you know, structure, right? Or we're gonna sit, and I just gotta let them come to me. I did the same last year. I actually thought I waited quite a while, but I was on the edge of some ag, and then I was on public, and I had them gobbling all morning. And then I set up, and I think I went 45 minutes, which is a long time. Like, they've been quiet. I waited and finally, it's over. And there's kind of a brush line and I stood up, and that sucker was 5 yards away from me on the other side of the brush line, right behind me. And he was still on the private. Like, I wouldn't have been able to shoot him, but I totally spooked him. And I was like, so then I'm like, well, see, I finally waited, you know.
Man alive, that is just the truth of it. It's crazy, you know. And the last couple seasons, like I said, we've been able to hunt some ridiculously good private stuff in Montana and gotten some amazing footage and just had an absolute ball hunting. But there again, I think to the last two birds in particular that we took last year were total waiting games. You know, it was like we got in, they were both afternoon hunts, got in. The first one in particular, the bird gobbled, and he would gobble about every 30 minutes, and he was in the same spot. He had a hen down in the woods, and he was doing his thing. And I looked at the guy I was with, and I said, we're in business. I said, we got a bird right here. And I said, we're just going to wait him out. I said, I'll talk to him about every 15 minutes. Just a yelp, a couple clucks, just to let him, hey, I'm still here. And it took like 3 hours. And all of a sudden, whoop, that big old head pops up over the dike, and he looks and he sees the decoys. And I called to him, and he gobbled, and he came on a string, you know. Nice. And it was like, that's why we sit here. You know, the other one was, we knew these birds were going back and forth through this particular spot, and we got in there. And we got in nice and early in late afternoon and just waited. I didn't know if there was going to be a bird through there or not. All of a sudden, you hear a gobble. 20 minutes later, there's several birds coming into the edge of the field, and they're feeding their way back to the roost, and it was an hour and a half before dark. And we got in their travel corridor, and birds came in, and it was epic. We're editing that video as we speak, and I've never captured turkey behavior quite like I captured last year. It was the year before, it was the high flying turkey kung fu on the decoys, the stuff everybody likes to see.
Yeah.
Because the birds were really establishing dominance still. And last year we were there later, same place, but we were there later in the season, and the birds were totally not aggressive at all. They were breeding, totally focused on breeding. And when they would commit, I had just a Jake with a laydown hen. And when they would commit, they would come in and they'd peck on that Jake for a little bit, and they would immediately mount that hen.
Okay.
And they would stand on that hen for as long as I was willing to let them. It was crazy, the difference. But that last hunt, they had 2 gobblers with 3 hens come in the field. The subordinate gobbler saw the Jake and the laydown hen and came running like 300 yards across this field. And the dominant gobbler let him get almost all the way to the decoys before he was like, I don't think so. And then he came storming into the frame past the GoPro, like the spit drum strut explosion, like boom, right into the frame. The GoPro, I'm like, he just about knocked it over. And he turns, and the subordinate gobbler is like looking at the hen, and this bird comes in, pivots, and jumps in the air and karate kicks that subordinate gobbler. And it's all happens like 5 feet from the GoPro.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. And then I was telling everybody, we watched it back that night, and once he got in there, of course, we let him do the thing, and then the guy that was with me shot the dominant bird, and we got back and we're playing it on the TV, looking at it that night, and I was like, guys, I've seen them kick decoys, I've seen them beat on each other, usually the whole neck wrestling thing, but I've never seen a gobbler jump up in the air and karate kick another gobbler like that, and just about knock him off his feet. It was really cool to see. So, but it was a good lesson at the same time that we had to sit for a long time before we had that action, and running and gunning was not an option in that area because it's river bottom habitat. So it's very narrow, and it's full of deer. Okay. I mean, choked with whitetails. And so if you walk 50 yards, you jump 10 deer, and you spook all these deer along with all the turkeys. And so the only option is to sit and wait. And man, but yeah, putting the decoys at 10 yards and knowing they're at 10 yards or 15 yards. So, okay, that I got 20 yards outside of that, or 30 yards outside of that is my kind of effective bubble. I mean, there's not a turkey load on the market right now, whether it's TSS or lead or a blend of the two, that's not going to be effective within 40 yards.
Yeah. And that's a key, like, that close decoy, I think is key. And then, knowing that those landmarks, I got to wait till he gets here or it's not happening. Right. That whether that's 30 yards, 30, whatever your range is. Yeah. That I remember when I first started hunting, I was putting decoys too far away. And then I watched when the double bull Blythe guys came out, and they're archery hunting and shooting, they put the decoys at 3 yards, right? And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like you're trying to, they'll naturally come in, they'll be focused on the decoy. They're not going to worry about you. Yeah. Yeah. Those little hacks are good.
Well, there's another one. So I can't remember, are you lefty or righty?
Righty.
Yeah. So I shoot right-handed too. And I always, I don't care if I'm in a blind or sitting against a tree, hiding in the open. If I'm using decoys, I'm always putting those decoys on the left side so I don't have to twist to my right. I just pick the gun up, and it's a very natural position to pick it up. The decoy's on my left. The bird comes in. He's already on my left shoulder, and I just pull the gun up, and it's very natural. I don't have to twist my torso at all.
Gotcha.
It's amazing how long it took me to figure that out, where I put a decoy on my right side, and then I have to twist, and the bird sees me, or it's right dead in front of me, and then I still have to twist, and my sight, then I'm not steady. And if I put them on my left, if you're a right-handed shooter, position your decoys so that bird's going to be on your left shoulder. And if you're a lefty, position them on the right side. And it's just easy. You just pick the gun up, bang, and you're right there. And it's little things like that. Putting the decoys close, positioning them in certain ways, where you maximize the ability to make a shot. Because, you're a working dude. I'm a working stiff. I only get so many days every spring to do this, putting everything in my favor. So when I do get an opportunity, I'm going to take that bird home with me is pretty important.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's really important when you got kids in the mix and you start taking kids with you. Holy smokes. This man alive.
I had kind of the red dot saved me last year when I was in Idaho. We'd hiked up a hill a little bit. We planned to do a big loop. We got about 15 minutes away from the truck and did a call down and again, and they gobbled. I think they were damn near sitting in the truck. So we set up, and they gobbled from our left. And so I kind of sat up pointing that way. Well, they ended up coming up on the right, so I was totally in the wrong way. And so while I saw the hens first coming up, and then they got behind some trees, I was able to switch the gun to the left side. And so then, the dot's your anchor point, where if I had to truly do it the left hand, I would have been like, we're really having to struggle one-eyed, and really figure that out. So yeah, it made it like a no-brainer shot too. So
yeah, the red dot, man. I've been running the Loophole Delta Point Pros for several years, but last year I put them on all the turkey guns that we use and just forced the guys. I'm like, you're going to use a red dot. This is it. We're just going to use these. And I've had multiple guys that are like, okay, yeah, that was awesome, because, maybe somebody's older and they can't see that bead on the end of their shotgun all that well anymore. It's fuzzy. It's low light. I mean, you name it, that red dot is just like, and it doesn't matter if you're perfectly down in the gun, like my kids, they're shooting a 410. It's a single shot. And it's, for my 10-year-old, it fits her perfect. For my 8-year-old, now this year, probably going to fit her just fine. But the 2 years previous to this, it's 6 and 7. She was like, she could barely get into the gun. But I'm like, can you see the red dot? She's like, yeah. And so we're out practicing on turkey targets. I was like, guns on your shoulder. Can you reach the trigger? Yes. Can you see the red dot? Yes. Put the red dot on his head and pull the trigger. And every time.
Sure.
And she doesn't have perfect cheek weld. She's not down on the gun, but that red dot, where if I wouldn't have had it, there's no way. There's no way. And so what it's done for my kids is it's gotten them in the field at an earlier age. And now they're like, Dad, we want to go to Iowa this year and hunt turkeys. And I'm like, okay, Dad, when's turkey season open? Dad, we need to go practice so we're ready for turkey season. They're ecstatic about it because they've had some success. They haven't just gone out and missed or struggled, whatever. Because trying to get them to shoot ducks with a 410 with no red dot, which honestly I should probably just let them use the 410 with the red dot on it, but I'm not. I'm letting them shoot this other little gun. Man, it's like I'm beating it into their head, bird bead bang, bird bead bang, because they're missing birds like crazy. And I'm not talking about flying ducks. I'm just landing ducks in the decoys and letting them try to shoot them,
Sure, yeah.
And they want to see it, so they're picking their head up off the stock, and they're missing. And then finally my 8-year-old went out and she stoned one. She's the one of the two that is a little more cool, level-headed, calm and collected. And My oldest didn't want to go. One morning it was cold. I was like, it's going to be good. And we went out, and sure enough, landing birds in the decoys, and she stoned 2 mallards with this little tiny Rossi break action 410. And I think I found, it was speed shock, like 3-inch 6s. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's plenty. You're shooting ducks sitting in the decoys at 15 yards, and she killed 2, and she was just ecstatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course got home, and big sister was like, all bent, nose bent out of joint. I'm like, you wanted to sleep. Sure. So
yeah, there's nothing like that first time when you drop one, like when you did it yourself, that was yeah, you'll never forget it.
I don't know who was more excited, Dan, me or her.
No, I was. It was you.
Oh, dude, I was through the roof. I was, because they'd shot and shot and shot and shot since like September and weren't killing any ducks. And I'm like, and this is why I bought Speed Shock for this, because you guys are just burning up ammo, which is great. It's great. That's what I want. But yeah, to go back to that red dot, so they're going to go from that to a red dot. And my 10-year-old, I bought her a 20 gauge. She's big enough to step up to a 20, and I got a red dot for it immediately. And we're going to get that out, get it sighted in, and let her rip. But yeah, man, having all those things, I think like turkey hunting for kids is probably one of the best things to introduce them to hunting with, because it teaches them that to be patient, to be still, to be quiet. There's action. And when there is action, it's really exciting, and they're not trying to shoot something flying, it's not like they're trying to shoot pheasants out of the air and just getting frustrated.
Yeah. And it's a great, it's a great opportunity just to teach woodsmanship, just to know tracks, know quiet, I heard the other day, which I hadn't really thought about, but it makes sense. It's like, sit down slowly, as we get older, we go to sit down and we plop, and it's like, big crunch, and things like that make a difference, especially in high pressure areas, so.
Yeah, that's spot on. You start talking about high pressure turkeys, and it makes the stuff, it's kind of funny because the last couple of years hunting in Montana on this private place that gets like no hunting pressure, these birds are very naive. I mean, they're still turkeys. They still can make you look like a fool, and you got to figure them out, but they're very naive compared to going over to hunt a national forest or a piece of state land or something. Mm-hmm. And it's the little things that it's easy to get an inflated ego when you're hunting birds like that, and you go over and you kill 4 in a day and a half, and you're like, smoked them, it's great. It's like, okay, now take the same skill set and go out on a piece of public.
That's right.
And try to accomplish the same thing. That will test your skills. So having all those little woodsmanship pieces in place, very, very important. And it just makes you a better hunter overall when you're just focused on those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still haven't killed a public land bird in Minnesota. I've hunted public land quite a few times, but I've been, I've done a lot of door knocking, or, I've got access to a few places. So, but last year we were on public. We did a group thing here with me and the shot shell engineers that I work with. There was 4 of us who had hunted a little more than 4 others. I think everybody had turkey hunted, but 4 of us had a little more experience. So we partnered with somebody less experienced, and then we went out and we had a 3-day tournament, who can tag. It was like, who can tag out quickest, and then we had biggest bird. And ultimately, of the 8 of us, Josh had already tagged out. So he, assisted and brought somebody with him. But we went 7 for 7 in 2 days, which was pretty cool. And Sam, who I was hunting with, he'd shot 1 turkey before down in Iowa. But we were hunting public land, and the first day we called one in, and we were on a clearing beside it, and he stayed 75 yards out inside the tree line. We could see him working. He knew the program exactly. And ultimately, I ended up going to a concert the night before, and I got home late, texted him and said, I'll meet you a little bit later, buddy. So he went back there, and he public land by himself, called in his first bird and brought it in and got it down. It was pretty sweet. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, it was a great contest, and then it was really fun. So now we've expanded a little bit. I think we got another 2 teams this year, and we're trying to bring a few. I think we got a few newbies who've never gone, which would be pretty fun. So we're going to do that 3rd weekend in April. So
I love that turkey camp, mentality. You and I've shared time in a snow goose camp, deer camp, of course, elk camp, you name it. But man, there's something just special about a turkey camp, and the weather's nice.
Mm-hmm.
You're in tents and you're just hanging out, or maybe you're in a hotel room or a cabin someplace, and you got a whole group of dudes, group of folks, group of hunters, and you come back and lunchtime and you're comparing notes, and just that camaraderie, man. Turkey hunting lends itself so well to that we haven't done that in a couple of years. We used to do the public land tent camp thing, and I need to get back to it out here, but it's like, you're not going to pass up a private land opportunity in Montana, and then you come home, and what little time you have left in the spring, your kids want to go, and so you're chasing stuff with them. But man, that stuff is fun. That sounds like a ball, man.
It's a good time. So,
but yeah, public land turkeys are a whole different ball of wax. Even in the West, where say you go to South Dakota or Wyoming and you're hunting the eastern part of the state or the western part of South Dakota in the Black Hills, there's a lot of public land. There's a lot of public land with no turkeys in it too.
Oh, sure.
You can walk and walk and walk and not find turkeys. And when you found turkeys, somebody else has found them first. And so they're not easy, and all those little things make it. You tag a public land bird, you've done something. That's a special accomplishment.
Yeah, I hunted some ground in South Dakota last year, and I'd never been there before, and just kind of went by the map, scouted, had a couple. Yeah, you're in the right area. I think the first day, we did a 6-mile loop and didn't hear a gobble, didn't see nothing, and it looked perfect, and that's just how it goes, So yeah, you just got to put the miles in.
It's the same way everywhere. I keep toying with the idea of doing one locally here. We just have so few turkeys in this part of Wyoming. There's a handful on the face of the mountain ranges here outside of Yellowstone. There's a handful, and I think it'd be an interesting twist to go kill a public land mountain turkey in grizzly habitat.
Oh, sure.
I was like, yep, I got my 3-inch TSS, but I got a 44 mag too.
Yeah. Well, I'm in. I'll do it with you if you want. So.
Oh, dude. Yeah. And I'm talking, you could cover miles and miles and days and not even hear a bird or even see a track. I mean, but there's some, it's just every now and then you'll be out driving around and be like, there's turkeys, and so, yeah, it might have to try the challenge and see if you can pull it off. But man, alive. Well, dude, I really appreciate your time. You're a busy guy, taking time out of your schedule to sit down and reassure everyone's TSS fears that I thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. And I just tell people, stop by your favorite store. If they don't have it, internet's going to be your friend, and you'll find it out there. Like we shipped a lot. We shipped a lot of product this year. I think you'd said something earlier about having that Grand Slam for many years, right? That is the one thing about turkey hunting is we're not shooting like cases like ducks.
Right.
So if you find 2-3 boxes, that price might be high, but if that gets you through a few seasons, that might weather the storm, and we'll be right back and getting that load, hopefully at a more affordable price, or back where you're more accustomed to it in a couple of years. If not, we're gonna have something new and great for you to try. So
there you go. And that's one of the things I love about you guys, man, is you never sit on your laurels. You're always rocking and rolling and innovating, and I love that. I think you made a great point where okay, it's expensive, but a box of 5, in reality, that should be 5 turkeys. 5 seasons, 5 turkeys, whatever you want to call it. And I've seen it, I'm still seeing it on the shelves. I was at Shields. Well, my wife was at Shields in Billings yesterday, and she asked me if I needed anything, and I'm like, no, I don't need anything. And I forgot that I'm running low on plastic swim baits, so I got to run back up there anyway, and so I can continue my walleye whacking. But I said, while you're there, I said, are you close to the ammo aisle? And she's like, yeah, the kids are. Well, there's something they like to play on that's right there by the ammo. And I said, hey, go and see what they've got for TSS turkey loads. And she went and looked. She's like, oh, they got tons. I said, yeah, that's kind of what I figured, And so, and even locally here at the hardware store, they got 20 boxes of it on the shelf, and this is not a turkey destination by any stretch. So
yeah,
it's there, it's available. But yeah, you make a great point. And yeah, you might want to buy 2-3 boxes if and that way you got it.
Yep. If you got a favorite load and you got a gun tuned to it, buy what you need, and
absolutely.
It doesn't keep it dry. It'll never go bad.
Yeah. That's always been my philosophy, lock it up, keep it, doesn't go bad. It's not like a loaf of bread. So
that's right.
Cool. Well, dude, I really appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Stay in touch. If you're serious about hunting turkeys out west, give me a holler.
Yeah, that might be something.
Try to put something together.
That might be a next year plan. I always say I'll pencil it in, but I need to put it in pen. So let's put it in pen. We'll do it next year.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Cool.
All right. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Dan. Have a great one.
Bye.